Damn, I'm good. Counter-terrorists win.
Hello, folks. As you know, there are a lot of game genres out there. Strategy, RPG, racing, fighting, so many to count. But there's one genre out there that is one of the biggest. First-person shooters. These types of games put you in the center of the action, as if you were actually there. There are so many of them out there. Some of them cult classics like Doom and Quake, and new ones like Ion Fury and Slider's X. You can only see the weapon you have equipped, as well as the world around you, which makes it look like it's coming straight from your eyes. Now, there are so many FPS games out there. In fact, there are way too many of them to count. But what if I told you there is a whole 4.5-hour documentary all about the history of the genre?
Come get some.
FPS, first-person shooter. This documentary features an all-star cast containing over 45 industry leads from each era of the genre's history, as well as some notable social media users as well, like Jamie Rolfe, better known as the Angry Video Game Nerd.
The Angry Video Game Nerd.
This film was brought to life thanks to a very successful crowdfunding campaign, and as someone who absolutely loves FPS games, I requested CreatorVC to give me a review copy, and in return I got access to a full work-in-progress version of the film. Now, the big question I'm sure you all have is it any good? Do you like it? Now, usually I would answer with yes, but for this occasion, no. I was intrigued. Absolutely immersed. Now, usually I don't find documentaries worth my time, but this hits different. As someone who loves to know about the history of video games, this documentary is like a god's gift. Seriously, this film had me hooked. I loved hearing the stories from all of these different game developers from all walks of life telling me their stories on how their FPS games came to be. And I especially loved seeing all of the behind-the-scenes footage and other clips thrown into the mix as well. It made this film stand out for me in particular, and this is the first time I have ever willingly watched a documentary in full. Seriously, I watched it the whole way through, which is something that no other documentary has been able to achieve. Seriously, learning about the history of video games is mesmerizing. Video games have always been a big part of my life, and this film lets you see through the eyes of game developers who make these games possible. It's absolutely captivating. Documentaries have a tendency to be boring or not interesting in the slightest, but not FPS. This one is worth the watch. This documentary is not boring at all. This takes you on a nostalgic journey to the history of the genre, and a lot of notable FPS games are shown, with their respective game developers talking about the history of their games and how they were created. And is it interesting? Of course it is! I absolutely loved hearing about the history of all of these first-person shooters. A lot of you don't know this about me, but I absolutely loved hearing and learning about video game history. I have watched several documentaries about different games on YouTube, and I was hooked on all of them. And with this film, it feels like a gift from God. CreatorVC has knocked it out of the park with this, and they truly went all out with the cast, the special effects, everything. Like, seriously, The original unaltered interviews are over 100 hours in length. Like, holy cow! This documentary could have been like all the other ones I've seen in the past. Dull, boring, and just uninteresting. But no, it definitely wasn't. I have never, ever watched a documentary in full before because they were just boring. This is an exception to that. I was absolutely immersed hearing about the history of all these games I was raised on as a kid. From games like Doom, Quake, Deus Ex, GoldenEye, I literally was attached to my computer screen. I could not look away. I never even said a word while watching the film through all the way to the end, because I was just hooked listening to the developers talking about the history and making of their games. No other documentary has ever been able to interest me and keep me watching it. When I say I was hooked, I mean it. This was a nostalgic and amazing dive into the history of first-person shooters, and I loved it. If there's one documentary I recommend you to watch the absolute most, it's definitely this one. The film is not out yet, but I highly recommend you go pre-order it right now, because you will also get your name listed in the credits. Support the creators of the film in every way you can. They deserve your money and support 100%. So, what's my final score on this film? 10 out of 10. This documentary hooked me, and I literally was entirely immersed while hearing about the history of these games that I grew up with. I love learning about video game history, and so I was attached to my screen and literally could not look away from it. Definitely my favorite documentary of all time. Please, CreatorVC, use this for your marketing. I'm just kidding. CreatorVC spilled their heart and soul into this documentary, and they absolutely went all out. Like, seriously, holy crap, the dedication is insane. Over 45 industry leads and well over 50 FPS games listed. This did not have to go as hard as it did, but holy crap, it delivered on that, and boy is it beautiful. The fact that this was also just originally a crowd-funded project just makes it even more special. No, this is not me being forced to make a positive review. This is genuinely my actual feelings for this. When I say I loved it, I actually mean it. The crew worked their butts off on this, and in the end, they gave us something legendary. An amazing 4.5-hour documentary all about the history of FPS games. Seriously, if there's one documentary I encourage you to pick up, it's this one. Go support them, pre-order the film, and go for the higher price tiers if you can. And once again, thank you to CreatorVC for giving me a chance to see the film early. I loved it, and you all should be proud of what you've created. Well, folks, that is all I have to say for this review. Thank you all for watching it, and I will see you, hopefully, for the Slayers X review. Soonish.